and Larry got kidnapped by Jack the Butterfly, and the episode starts with it takes us back to when Niles was a young lad, and he was walking through the streets of, I guess, London, and this mysterious creature walked up. He was killing this woman, and normally under normal circumstances, a regular person would see shit like that and then run for their lives and start screaming. Niles ended up standing there intrigued and watching. He even spoke to the person who was committing this heinous act, and he asked him. He was like, "Oh, you Jack the Ripper?" And then he started laughing. I believe the guy's name is Jack, but but he's basically like a figure throughout. He's basically like, I don't know if he's a metahuman magic or whatever you want to call it, but he goes around basically like killing people and taking their souls and like turning them into butterflies and using them to do his evil bidding. But there was something about Niles that intrigued him. So anyway, so they show us that in the beginning of the episode. This is the same person, this Jack Butterfly guy. He basically snatched up Larry, and he has Larry. That's where the butterfly thing came in. So he snatches up Larry. He brings Larry to like his evil butterfly realm. He has Larry tied up. He sends a message to Niles saying, either come have a meeting with me or Larry's gonna die. Niles is having breakfast. His daughter made him breakfast because Rita's teaching the girl how to cook. Cliff shows up, and Cliff sees Niles and his daughter having a good time, laughing and bonding, which pisses him off, and then he ruins the whole thing. Niles and Cliff get into an argument, and then he called his daughter a monster, and then he was like, "Call my daughter a monster again." And he was like, "What you gonna do? You you in a wheelchair, bitch?" And then then he got mad, and then he told Jane. He was like, "Yo, Jane, let's get the F up out of here." And then Jane and Cliff, they got in the bus and they pulled off. So then Niles got an invitation telling him to come down to the butterfly realm. Rita's there, and he tells Rita, like, "Listen, come with me, Larry's in trouble." And Rita's like still doing the whole pity party, like, "Oh, I'm no good and I can't do anything." And she's like, "That's all I'm good for." Is nothing. And then he's just like, "I need your help." And then he guilted her into it. Now, throughout the course of the entire episode, they showed us the history of how Larry and Rita met. Rita was basically like the first, the first member of the Doom Patrol to come to the house. Larry was the second. She was the one that showed him the ropes, took him around the house, taught him like the ins and the outs. We learned that the bandages that Larry wears are special bandages that Niles made, which keeps the radiation, because since he has like the negative energy inside of him, that makes him radioactive. And the bandages, I guess they're lined with lead or something. These are special bandages, and this is something I never knew. Special bandages that keeps the radiation like within, even with the glasses and everything. So this way, like, Larry can't poison other people with with his radiation. Now, I don't know how that applies for when the negative energy jumps out his body, but but at least we got an explanation of the whole thing with the bandages, and they're not just random bandages. So like I said, so it's just like, it just takes us through like the whole dynamic with the two of them. Larry, back in the day when they first met, Larry says, "I remember you from when you were a movie star." Her face starts to melt, and then the two of them, bond and end up saying that they'll be there for each other, which is why, like, when we in season 1, the two of them are like besties. This gives us an insight on how that actually, like, happened, and how their bond got strong. So of course Rita's gonna go and try to save him. So Rita goes in, Niles goes in, and then Niles comes face to face with the Jack Butterfly guy, and then he was just like, "All those years ago, Niles Coulter, when you didn't run from me when I showed up, like, you proved to me that you could be the next me. You let me train you, let me allow you to become me." And then Niles was like, "No, I'll never become you." And then, Jack tried to torture him, because he was just like, "Well, if you're not going to become me or be my apprentice, then I'll basically just like torture you and kill you like I do everybody else." So he tortured Niles by making Niles relive the pain that Cliff felt by turning Niles into a robot. So now Niles has a better sense of how Cliff feels, and how what he did to Cliff, how basically how much he hurt Cliff, because of like what he did. Like, he made Niles feel that pain. Rita found Larry like downstairs in the basement. He was tied up to the ceiling, and then I guess like the dude like Jack knew she was there as well, so he was ready to claim all three of their souls because like I guess what happens is like butterfly wings come out your back, and then like your back explodes into like a million butterflies. But then Rita, Rita was turned into a butterfly. Larry was turned into a butterfly. The chief was turned into a butterfly. But then Rita used her power because see like. Rita, in the first episode, Rita talked about how she wanted to be a superhero. And then Cyborg was like, you ain't got what it takes. And the last two episodes, she's done heroic things. So, like, Rita's basically on the road to heroism, and she doesn't even realize it yet. So she saves Larry. Her and Larry are looking for the chief. They see a wall full of butterflies with names under it. And then they were just like, oh, this must be all the victims that Jack has collected over the years. So they bust the glass, they let all the butterflies out, and I guess they release the souls of all of his victims that he had trapped. So eventually, like Niles breaks free, because like just before I guess Jack took his soul. Niles stabbed him in the neck with a knife, and then Jack was down for the count, and then the three of them got out of there. And then when they got home, like Niles basically he ended up he was like crying or whatever, and he felt really bad because like I said he actually feels the pain that he caused. Like Rita for Rita and Cliff and like everybody else. So, like he's kind of going through that whole remorse thing. Rita and Larry hug, and then like that whole storyline's all good. When Cliff and Jane took off, Cliff basically went to go see his daughter because Cliff was just like, you know what? Screw the chief and his happiness with his daughter. I'm gonna go see my own daughter, and I'm gonna prove that my relationship's better than his, and I'm a better because he's still trying to like. He still ain't fucking with the chief, so he's still trying to like one up him, and he's trying to like hurt him every chance he gets. So he wants to show his happiness with his daughter and like throw it in his face. So Cliff shows up at his daughter's house like a robot. He tells his daughter like, hey, I'm your dad, and then he was just like, remember the bracelet, the watch. He was like, I won that watch in '77 and I gave it to you. I had to wrestle an alligator and I got the watch back, this, that, and the third. So now like his daughter's in shock because she thought her father was dead this whole time. And then Cliff showed up on the day that his daughter was having her baby shower because she's pregnant and Cliff's about to be a grandfather, and she's worried about that, and now she's trying to process the fact that her father is alive after all these years and he's a robot. Cliff didn't understand that, and he just kind of got mad because she didn't react to him the way he wanted her to, and then he threw a temper tantrum which scared his daughter even more, and then she was just like she knew, she believed him. Like, I feel like she believed him. She believed that, holy shit, this is my dad. But because of how he was acting and because of, like, the overwhelming emotion, she just wasn't in a state of mind where she was ready to have that conversation. So, she told him that. And then he was just like, all right, when you're ready to talk, he's like, I'm going to sit right here on the porch and I'm going to wait for you to come and I'm going to wait for you to talk to me. So she gets scared. She calls the cops show up. Cliff's talking to the cops, and then he ends up getting, one of the cops even said, he was just like, listen, if you're her father, let her cool off, let her think about it, and then just come back and try again later. And then Cliff was like, I shouldn't have to try, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like throwing this whole big thing. He's destroying the bus that he drove in. He's on top of the bus, like having a heart attack, like cursing up a storm. Now, the people that are supposed to arrive at the baby shower, they're showing up, and he's just causing this whole big scene, and it's not helping his case as far as like trying to have a relationship with his daughter. Jane went to sleep, and she ended up falling asleep during the road trip, and then she ended up in the underground, and she walked right into an intervention in the underground, and all the underground like girl, not all of them, but like a lot of them, the actresses that they were able to cast to play specific roles, they were sitting there for the intervention, and they were basically told Jane straight up, like, listen, your actions with the Doom Patrol, you hanging out with the Doom Patrol, getting into trouble, jumping to different universes and different realms and all this other stuff, you're putting all of us in danger. Then they're like, then there's the drugs and the heroin. They're like, you're putting us all in danger, and we'd like you to stop. We don't appreciate what you're doing, and we really would like you to chill out. So of course Jane was like, fuck y'all, I do what I want because I'm the primary. And they basically told her, either they was like, they said that your addiction, it's not the heroin, your addiction is the Doom Patrol and Niles Coulter because you consider them family, and you're even starting to care for his daughter, and your objective isn't to care for that little girl. We have our own little girl, Kay, that you need to take care of. And now we're back to this whole Kay thing. So then, Jane, Jane doesn't, Jane, they gave her an ultimatum. They were like, listen, either leave the Doom Patrol and leave all those fools behind, or we're gonna remove you as the primary. Jane obviously didn't listen. She was like, "Fuck yeah," and she went, and she went back. She went back to the real world. She pulls Cliff down because she told Cliff, she was just like, listen. She was just like, listen, what happened to you, how you lost your family and everything, it wasn't your fault. But she's like, but what's happening now in this particular moment is your fault. And then Cliff looked over and he saw his daughter in the house crying. And then he was just like, shit. He was just, that's when he realized, he was like, yo, I just fucked up her entire baby shower. And he's like, I'm causing her some hurt. He's like, I'm causing my daughter hurt. And that wasn't the reason why I came outside. I didn't come out here today to cause her hurt. I came here to try to make a connection, and I just fucked that up. So, Cliff got, Cliff, he felt bad. And then him and Jane got in the car. And then, the two of them took off. So because Jane ended up going back to Doom Patrol Manor, she went to sleep again. And when she woke up, she was in a cage, and the other girls in the underground basically locked Jane up, and now someone else is gonna take over as the primary, which it's either they're either all gonna take turns, or Miranda's basically gonna end up taking over as the primary, and Jane is now being locked up in the underground. So there's obviously there's gonna be an episode where everybody got to go into the underground to go save Jane, but Jane's on lockdown for the moment. Dorothy, she was playing hide and go seek with her imaginary friends. Danny the Street had turned in, I didn't even mention this, Danny the Street turned into a brick. I guess that was because of the whole situation where they blew up the thing with the painting and and the cockroach, like all that other stuff. And because of that, Danny turned into he went from a street to a brick. And then Niles said that eventually Danny would blossom into a street or a neighborhood again. But until then, he's a brick. His daughter was playing hide and seek with her imaginary friends, and Danny was playing too. She found Danny, she picked him up, she dropped him, and then Danny broke in half. So she feels like she killed Danny in the street. So she started freaking out. She started crying. Like her dad came. Like he consoled her, and then he was just like, "Yo, don't worry about it, Dia. Everything will be okay." So I don't know if that's resolved or if we're gonna readdress the whole Danny being broken in half. Based on the coming attractions for next week's episode, we're probably going to address Danny being broken in half. And then finally, Cyborg. He showed up for, because remember, like he hasn't been with them for 2 episodes. He shows up for his weekly group meeting. The black girl that he took out to lunch the other day, she was there by herself. And then she said that she told everybody that that the group was canceled, or the group wasn't gonna happen. And then he was just like, why would you tell everybody that except me? Because she was trying to get in his pants, and she snatched him up, took him back to the bedroom so the two of them can get it on. Now, she like, and it was so weird because she knows he's a cyborg. Everybody knows he's a cyborg. Like, everybody knows he's part robot. You can see the damn metal plate on his face. You can see his hands made out of metal. So they were like making out or whatever. And then when she tried to unzip his hoodie, he was just like, no, like you can't see. And I'm like, motherfucker. I'm like, bro, like we know you're made out of metal. So then she took off her shirt and showed him her scars, and she had like burn marks from her shoulder all across her chest all the way around, and she had like some real serious scars. So it was classic. You show me mine, I'll show you yours. So he felt comfortable. He showed, he took his thing off, and the two of them got it on. So then, they're having pillow talk or whatever, and then she asked him, was I the first person you had sex with since the cyborg thing happened? And then he was just like, yeah. He said that he had a chance once before, but it didn't work out. But for some reason, but he's like, he's glad it worked out with her. And then I don't know if she got offended by what he said, or if she was just like, oh shit, he actually likes me, and then that scared her off. So then she was just like, oh, it's not gonna work. This whole thing's not gonna work between us. And he was just like, yo, what'd I say? So he was just like, look, he was like, I'm not an asshole. He's like, I wasn't just trying. First of all, she lured him into the bedroom, and he was like, look, I wasn't trying to hit it and quit it. I actually do like you. She was like, that's bullshit. And he was like, yo, let's go out to dinner, and I can prove to you that I'm actually a decent dude. So he goes down to dinner. He's waiting for her. She doesn't show up, and then she sends him an email. The email said, I might as well get this out of the way now, or you might as well learn the truth now, or whatever. She sent him photos and paperwork of her when she was in the military. All the, like, she, how she got in trouble for disciplinary action, and she was basically a problem, and she was a risk, and I think she got arrested for something, for misconduct or whatever. And then she sent him a photo, I guess, of her overseas, where she either captured or killed a bunch of people, and she was like standing over their bodies on top of the tank like a champion. And she was basically just relaying the message to him: I've done some shit. I've killed people. I've bust some ass. I've whooped a lot of ass. Like, I've caused a lot of people harm, and I enjoyed it. She wasn't trying to hide it wasn't one of those things where it's like, oh, that was just the mission and I hate it. She actually looked like she enjoyed the shit. So I guess that's like a conflict of interest, because she's very just like gung-ho, whatever. Like, I'll cut your head off if you talking shit. But that's weird though, because Cyborg's like a hero, and I guess she feels like, oh, he has a moral compass and I don't. But then the argument they had in the last episode was her having a moral compass and him just being like, yo, let's put these bums in prison. So like their views on how certain things go is very opposite. They do share very opposite views, but I guess she felt like the person who she really is wouldn't vibe with the type of person he really is. So she was just, I guess, because she's ashamed of her past, she's just like, here's everything about me, and then, make your own decision. And then, when he read the emails, like he got upset, and then he walked out of the diner. She showed up to the diner. She parked in front of the diner, and she watched him get up, leave, and walk out of the diner. So now in her mind, she's like, oh, he left because he saw who I really was, and he doesn't want to accept me for who I am. That's this, that, she's gonna, and I'm just like, that's not it. He's mad because you left, because like you ghosted him at like, I don't think Cyborg doesn't care. I don't think he cares about her past. His whole thing is, you ghosted me at the diner. I told you to show up for dinner and you didn't show up. So he's mad at that, like and then because of how her email came in saying like, you would have found out eventually, I guess he took it as that was her way of breaking things off with him. So the two of them, they'll work that out eventually. And that was it. That was basically it. So in the next episode, I guess Niles is going to throw a party for the Doom Patrol as his way of saying sorry for all the pain that he's caused, and everybody who lived on Danny the Street is supposed to come back for that party. So that's going to be a little crazy. Jane's new primary is supposed to be there, and I think she's trying to let Cyborg hit it. So Cyborg's back at the mansion, and we'll see how all that drama and that craziness unfolds. So let me know in the comments, what do you think's going on with the black girl that Cyborg's trying to get with? What do you think her deal is? Was I right about the assessment on their whole relationship situation? And what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? How does she become a part of the whole thing? Is she secretly a villain or not? And share some other thoughts that you may have as far as like Jane and other characters are concerned. So thank you for tuning in. Check me out on social media. Got more videos coming in the pipeline. Doom Patrol episode 3 is in the books. And until episode 4, take care, guys. And I'm out this bitch.